in St. Paul, Minnesota on September 24, 1896. I was raised as an Irish Catholic and my mother's side of the family was quite wealthy. I went to private school in New Jersey when my family had moved up there for a while. When my father had lost his job, we fled back to Minnesota. I attended Princeton University and wrote musical comedies there. Unfortunately, they were thought to be no good. In 1915, I decided to drop out not only because my grades were too low, but I had also become very unhealthy. I came back to Princeton in 1916. In 1918, I had gone to join the Army. I was stationed in Alabama when I thought I had met the love of my life, Zelda Sayer. Zelda was only 18 at the time, but I desperately wanted to marry her. Zelda and I had a wonderful child, a daughter. Scotty Fitzgerald was her name. She was born on October 26, 1921. A month after she was born, we moved back to St. Paul. On April 10, 1925, one of my best-selling, most loved books was published, The Great Gatsby. In 1934, my marvelous book, Tender as the Night, was published. Throughout my life, I had moved all over the world, and I've had a marvelous journey. I have loved every minute of it, and I am 100% dedicated and devoted to my work. This quote uses great diction in describing Tom Buchanan as a most arrogant man. I choose Tom's first appearance to be shown through Nick's eyes. The detail and word choice I added creates a clear image of who Tom Buchanan really is, a large-built man. You also get a clue of his personality as well by my description of his attire. It shows that he is rich and, as I already mentioned, arrogant. I compared the East Egg and the West Egg using this quote. I use somewhat formal language. In some of the dialogue during the novel, I make people sound like they are from a lower class. The language they use swings back and forth from formal to informal frequently. I also describe the parties in great detail, how they look, what they're like, the vibrancy of the colors, the details of everyone's costume and outfits, and the detail of the setting. This was the time of glitz, glamour, and wow. Everything I describe is very flashy because it's the Roaring Twenties. I use multisyllabic words, great diction of vocabulary, and a proper tone. This sentence has a very unique sentence structure because it is an example of one sentence that is a compound complex sentence, and it is very long. It has one semicolon, one comma, and one dash. I use the dash mark a lot in my writing, but it is not used too often by most writers. This sentence has some figurative language, detail, and lots of descriptive words to make it unique. The sentence structure in my work is different. It adds more detail and lots of commas and semicolons are used in the sentences. This quote is from The Diamond as Big as the Ritz, one of my most famous short stories that was written during the Roaring Twenties and has a similar theme to The Great Gatsby. This quote uses lots of dashes, commas, colons, and semicolons. There are lots of compound complex sentences like this one in the short story, similar to The Great Gatsby, but there are also some simple compound sentences too. I did not add as much detail in this story as I did in The Great Gatsby. There is also not as much figurative language, but there is lots of dialogue between characters. The tone that I try to get across is ironic and cynical, which means, in the novel, people believe that other people are motivated by self-interest. They think others are untrustworthy or dishonest. This is the main tone I have when I was writing the novel. I try to get this across by several different types of irony. This quote describes Nick observing Tom and Daisy, and it is an example of how the tone is displayed. This quote is from The Diamond as Big as the Ritz. My tone that I use sounds dark and somewhat creepy. He seems like he wants to hurt his brother. The tone I also use in the book is sarcastic. The tone that I use in The Diamond as Big as the Ritz is not the same as The Great Gatsby. There Here's an example of figurative language from when I described Tom and Daisy's house. This is a sentence packed with figurative language. It paints a picture in your mind of what Tom and Daisy's house looks like. I use lots of figurative language in the novel. My writing is unique in its own little way. I use lots of similes, some metaphors, and personification to create a good sense of imagery. I rarely use onomatopoeias and alliteration. I have my own creative style to draw the reader's attention and pull them in. During the novel, I show Gatsby as a symbolic human. Nick uses this quote to describe him. He represents a strong, powerful figure with lots of control and lots of money. Some people find him cocky. Others find him amazing and wonderful. Lots of colors are also used as symbolism. I mentioned in the preface that time was a major theme in the novel. I had also mentioned that episodes in the book were reinforced by time symbolism. These are a few examples. This was an important moment in the novel because it was a flashback where Nick, the narrator, saw what was happening with Gatsby at a young age. I had Nick explain to the audience Gatsby's past to let the reader know that Nick knows about his past. It is a flashback from when Gatsby is a teenager. I made this an important point in the story because this was the beginning of the story of how Gatsby came to be. It is told through Nick. This is an example of how I used verbal irony when Gatsby, Nick, and Mr. Wolfsheim were at the restaurant. Mr. Wolfsheim said this quote to the two of them. I used this verbal irony in the novel because Nick is about to find out that Gatsby is in love with Daisy, who is Tom's wife and Nick's cousin. An example of situational irony in the novel is when at the very end of the book, Daisy ends up with Tom instead of her true love, Gatsby. I purposely did this to create situational irony. An example of dramatic irony in the novel is when all of the characters except for Tom are aware of the affair between Gatsby and Daisy.